The rain came down hard that Thursday afternoon, turning the streets into rivers of gray water. Daniel Chen had no umbrella, no plan, and absolutely no desire to get soaked to the bone. He spotted the coffee shop across the street and made a run for it, dodging puddles and failing miserably. By the time he pushed through the glass door, his jacket was dripping, his shoes were making embarrassing squeaking sounds, and his hair was plastered to his forehead. The warmth of the coffee shop hit him immediately, along with the smell of fresh roasted beans and cinnamon. He stood there for a moment, catching his breath, and creating a small puddle on the floor. That was when he noticed something unfortunate. Every single table was occupied. People sat hunched over laptops, couples shared pastries, students spread textbooks across surfaces. There was not an empty seat anywhere. Well, almost anywhere. At a corner table near the window, a young woman sat alone with her laptop and what looked like very expensive camera equipment spread around her. She had dark hair pulled into a messy bun, and she was completely absorbed in whatever she was editing on her screen. The glow from her laptop lit up her focused expression. Daniel hesitated. He did not want to intrude. But standing there, dripping on the floor, was not exactly a great alternative. Their eyes met for just a second. He must have looked as desperate as he felt, because she glanced at the empty chair across from her and gave a small nod. He walked over, still dripping. "Thanks so much," he said, trying to sound casual and not like a drowned cat. "I promise I won't take up much space." She looked up briefly and smiled. "The rain caught everyone off guard today," she said. Her voice was warm, friendly, but not overly so. Just nice. Daniel ordered his coffee and came back to the table. He pulled out his own laptop, trying his best not to bump into her camera gear. She was a photographer. Clearly. The equipment alone probably cost more than his entire month's rent. He focused on his design work, pulling up the project he had been avoiding all week. A logo redesign for a local bakery. Nothing exciting. But it paid the bills. For a while, they both worked in comfortable silence. The coffee shop hummed with quiet conversation and the hiss of the espresso machine. Rain continued to drum against the windows. Daniel snuck a few glances at the woman across from him. She had this way of tilting her head when she studied her photos, like she was trying to see them from a different angle. Then, disaster struck. Daniel reached for his coffee cup without looking. His elbow caught the edge, and the cup tipped over. Everything happened in slow motion. The hot coffee rushed across the table directly toward her laptop and cameras. But she was fast. Her hands shot out and grabbed her camera, lifting it just in time. The coffee stopped at the edge of the table, contained by the slight lip of the wood. Not a single drop touched her equipment. They both froze, staring at the coffee pooling dangerously close to expensive electronics. Then she laughed. It was a real laugh, not a polite one. "That was almost very expensive," she said, still smiling. "But nice reflexes, right?" Daniel felt his face turn red. "I am so sorry," he said, grabbing napkins and trying to mop up the mess. "I swear, I'm not usually this clumsy. Just today. Just right now, apparently." She helped him clean up, and suddenly, the awkwardness melted away. They introduced themselves properly. Her name was Olivia Martinez, and she was a freelance photographer trying to edit photos for a client who kept changing their mind about everything. Daniel told her about his graphic design work, about moving to the city 6 months ago after things fell apart back home. He did not mention the breakup specifically, but something in his tone probably gave it away. They discovered they had both gone to the same university, though she graduated 2 years after he did. They might have walked past each other 100 times without knowing it. "Small world," she said, and Daniel agreed. The conversation kept flowing. She told him about losing her creative spark lately, about how every photo felt forced and uninspired. He understood that feeling completely. Some days he stared at a blank screen for hours, waiting for ideas that never came. Before either of them realized it, someone was announcing that the coffee shop was closing. Daniel checked his phone and blinked in surprise. 3 hours had passed. 3 hours that felt like, maybe, 30 minutes. They packed up their things slowly, neither one rushing. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. The street was clean and shiny, reflecting all the lights from shops and street lamps. Puddles everywhere looked like little mirrors. "We should do this again," Daniel said, then immediately worried he sounded too eager. "I mean, not the coffee spilling part, just the talking part." Olivia smiled and pulled out her phone. "Give me your number. Maybe next time we can meet somewhere without the disaster element." They exchanged numbers right there on the sidewalk. Daniel typed her name into his contacts, with hands that felt slightly shaky. He was not sure why he felt nervous. This was just two people who had shared a table and conversation. Nothing more. They said goodbye and started walking in opposite directions. Daniel made it about 20 steps before something made him turn around. Maybe he wanted one last look at the coffee shop, or maybe something else pulled his attention back. Olivia had turned around at the exact same moment. Their eyes met across the distance. She smiled, looking a bit embarrassed at being caught. He smiled back, feeling the same way. Then they both laughed and continued on their separate paths. Daniel walked home with his hands in his pockets, his jacket still damp, his shoes still squeaking. But he felt lighter somehow, like something had shifted in his day, in his week, maybe in his whole reason for moving to this city. He did not know what it was yet. He just knew that something about this rainy afternoon felt different. Something about Olivia felt different. And for the first time in months, he found himself looking forward to tomorrow. Daniel stared at his phone for a solid 10 minutes the next morning. He had typed and deleted at least 5 different messages. Each one felt either too casual, or too eager, or just plain weird. Finally, he settled on something simple. "Hey, thanks for sharing your table yesterday. Hope your client finally makes up their mind about those photos." He hit send before he could overthink it again. Olivia's response came back within 2 minutes. "Ha, not yet, but there is still hope. Thanks for not spilling coffee on round 2. How is the bakery logo coming along?" And just like that, they were texting. It started with simple updates about their workdays, then evolved into sharing funny things they saw on the street, then late-night messages about childhood memories and dreams they had given up on. Daniel found himself checking his phone more often than he wanted to admit. 2 weeks passed in a blur of messages and phone calls that stretched past midnight. They talked about everything and nothing. She told him about growing up in a loud family where everyone had opinions about her art career. He told her about the relationship that ended badly, about moving to the city to start fresh, about feeling like he was still figuring out who he was supposed to be. Then one evening, Daniel saw a flyer for an art gallery opening. Local photographers would be displaying their work. He took a photo of the flyer and sent it to Olivia with a message. "Thought you might be interested in this." Her response made his heart skip. "Actually, one of my photos is in that show. Were you thinking of going?" He tried to play it cool. "Yeah, I love supporting local artists. Plus, I am curious to see your work in person." They agreed to meet there on Saturday evening. Daniel changed his outfit 3 times before leaving his apartment. He told himself this was not a date. Just 2 friends meeting at a public event. Friends who talked every single day and stayed up late sharing secrets, but still, just friends. He arrived at the gallery early and immediately felt out of place. Everyone looked artistic and intentional with their clothing choices. He had settled on dark jeans and a button-up shirt, trying to find the balance between casual and trying too hard. Then Olivia walked in. She wore a deep blue dress that Daniel had never seen before. Usually she dressed in comfortable jeans and loose shirts, practical clothes for carrying camera equipment. But tonight, she looked different. She had put in effort, and Daniel could not stop staring. Their eyes met across the gallery. She smiled and walked over, and he noticed she seemed a bit nervous too. That made him feel slightly better. "You look really nice," he said, then worried that sounded too forward. "Thanks," she said, touching her hair self-consciously. "You clean up pretty well yourself." They walked through the gallery together, looking at black and white landscapes, portraits of strangers, abstract compositions that Daniel did not quite understand. Then, they stopped in front of her photograph. It was a street scene, captured during golden hour. An elderly couple sat on a bench, holding hands, their faces turned toward the sunset. Something about the image felt honest and raw. It captured a moment of quiet love that most people would have walked right past. "This is beautiful," Daniel said quietly. "The way you caught the light and their expressions. It feels real." Olivia looked pleased. "That is what I was going for. Real moments. Not posed perfection." They stood close together as Daniel studied the photo more carefully. He pointed out small details he appreciated. The composition choices. The emotional weight of the image. Olivia listened carefully. And Daniel could tell his words meant something to her. That was when someone called Olivia's name. A woman with bright red hair rushed over and hugged her. "And you must be the boyfriend she has been texting about." The silence that followed felt thick and awkward. "We are just friends," Olivia said quickly. "This is Daniel. We met a couple weeks ago." The woman looked between them with a knowing smile but did not push it. Still, the damage was done. The word, boyfriend, hung in the air between them as they continued through the gallery. After the show, neither wanted to go home yet. They walked to a nearby park, even though the evening air was cool, and Daniel had not brought a jacket. They found a bench and sat down, leaving a careful space between them. The conversation picked up again, but something had shifted. There was an awareness now, an acknowledgement of something neither had spoken out loud. Daniel was explaining a design project when he reached out to touch her arm for emphasis. His hand landed on her wrist, and he felt her pulse jump under his fingers. He pulled back quickly, apologizing. Olivia did not move away. Instead, she playfully bumped her shoulder against his. "You are fine," she said. "I do not bite." The casual touch felt like permission. They sat closer now, the space between them shrinking. Daniel wanted to take her hand but could not quite find the courage. What if he was reading everything wrong? What if she just wanted friendship? When they finally stood to leave, Olivia pulled him into a hug. It was not a quick goodbye hug. It was the kind of embrace where both people hold on a little longer than necessary. Where you can feel the other person's heartbeat. Where letting go feels harder than it should. "Text me when you get home," Olivia said softly. Daniel promised he would. He walked back to his apartment with his hands in his pockets and his mind racing. That night, lying in bed, he replayed every moment. The way she looked in that blue dress. The pride in her voice when she talked about her photograph. The warmth of her shoulder pressed against his. The way she fit perfectly in his arms during that hug. His phone buzzed, a message from Olivia. He smiled in the darkness. "Me too. Your photo was the best one there." Her response came quickly. "Flattery will get you everywhere." Daniel stared at those words for a long time, wondering if she meant them the way he hoped she did. He fell asleep with his phone still in his hand, dreaming of blue dresses and photographs and the feeling of someone's pulse racing under his fingertips. The text came on a random Wednesday afternoon. Olivia had sent him a link to a cooking class happening that weekend. "This looks either fun or like a complete disaster," she wrote. "Want to risk it with me?" Daniel did not even hesitate. "I am in. Fair warning, though. I once burned water." Her response made him laugh. "Perfect. We will be the entertainment for everyone else." Saturday arrived. and Daniel found himself standing outside a bright kitchen studio in a nicer part of town. Cooking equipment lined the walls, and everything looked expensive and breakable. He spotted Olivia through the window, already inside, and looking slightly nervous. The instructor was a cheerful woman who paired everyone up immediately. Daniel and Olivia became cooking partners, which meant sharing a station, ingredients, and the very real possibility of setting something on fire. "Today we are making fresh pasta from scratch," the instructor announced. "With homemade tomato sauce and herb bread." Olivia looked at Daniel with wide eyes. "We are definitely going to mess this up," she whispered. But something unexpected happened. They worked well together. Really well. Daniel measured ingredients, while Olivia mixed. She rolled out dough, while he prepared the sauce. They moved around each other naturally, like they had been cooking together for years instead of minutes. At one point, the instructor came over to demonstrate proper vegetable chopping technique. She guided Olivia's hands, but then asked Daniel to help. He stood behind Olivia, his arms around her as he placed his hands over hers on the knife. The instructor talked about angle and pressure, but Daniel barely heard the words. He was too aware of how close they were standing, how Olivia's hair smelled like vanilla, how she leaned back slightly into his chest. "You two are naturals," the instructor said. "You look like you have been cooking together forever." They finished the demonstration, but Daniel's hands felt warm where they had covered hers. Olivia glanced back at him with a look he could not quite read, but her cheeks were slightly flushed. When it came time to taste test the sauce, Olivia dipped a spoon in and held it up to Daniel. "Try this. Tell me if it needs more salt." He tasted it, and her fingers briefly touched his lips as she pulled the spoon away. The sauce was good, but all he could think about was that small point of contact. "Perfect," he said, his voice coming out rougher than intended. "Does not need anything." The class continued, and they fell into an easy rhythm. They laughed when their pasta came out slightly lumpy. They celebrated when their sauce turned out better than expected. When the instructor announced a friendly competition for best overall dish, they worked together with focused determination. Somehow, impossibly, they won. The hug they shared in celebration lasted several heartbeats longer than appropriate for friends. Daniel could feel Olivia's smile against his shoulder. "We actually did it," she said, sounding genuinely surprised. When the class ended, Daniel felt that familiar reluctance to say goodbye. They walked outside into the early evening, the sun just starting to set. "Want to walk for a bit?" he asked. "The waterfront is not far from here." Olivia agreed immediately. They walked side by side through the busy streets, talking about the class and laughing about their initial fears of disaster. As they reached a quieter stretch near the water, their hands brushed together. Once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th brush, Daniel took the chance. He slid his hand into hers. Olivia's fingers intertwined with his without hesitation. Neither of them said anything about it. They just kept walking, hands linked, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. The water sparkled with reflected light. A few boats drifted past. Everything felt peaceful and right. They found a bench overlooking the water and sat down. Their shoulders pressed together, and Daniel kept hold of her hand. The conversation drifted to deeper topics: past relationships and why they ended, the fear of getting hurt again, the difficulty of trusting someone new. "My ex made me feel like my dreams were stupid," Daniel admitted. "Like wanting to be a designer was childish. I started believing it after a while." Olivia squeezed his hand. "That is terrible. Your work is incredible. Anyone who could not see that did not deserve you." Her words meant more than she probably knew. "What about you?" he asked gently. "Why freelance photography instead of working for a studio?" She was quiet for a moment. "Everyone told me it was too risky, too unstable. My family wanted me to get a real job. Even the guy I dated in college kept pushing me towards something more practical." Eventually, I just stopped sharing my work with people. Stopped trusting my own vision. Daniel turned to look at her. That photograph at the gallery, he said. The one with the couple on the bench. That came from someone who absolutely knows what she is doing. Do not let anyone make you doubt that. Their eyes met and held. Olivia's voice came out soft. How are you so good at saying exactly what I need to hear? Maybe because I know what it feels like to doubt yourself, he said. And I hate seeing someone as talented as you do the same thing. The moment stretched between them. Daniel reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. She did not move. His hand touched her cheek, and he felt her breath catch. He brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her skin. Olivia leaned into his touch, her eyes never leaving his. They were so close now, just inches apart. Daniel could see the different shades of brown in her eyes, could count her eyelashes if he wanted to. They both leaned forward at the same time. Just as their lips were about to meet, a group of joggers thundered past, laughing loudly and completely oblivious to the moment they were interrupting. Daniel and Olivia jerked apart, startled. Then, they looked at each other and started laughing. The tension broke, but it did not disappear. It just shifted into something warmer, more comfortable. They stood and started walking back, still holding hands. The streets were busier now, full of people heading to dinner or evening plans. But Daniel barely noticed anyone else. I need to tell you something, he said as they neared the spot where they would part ways. I have not felt this way about anyone in a really long time. Maybe ever. And it kind of scares me. Olivia stopped walking and turned to face him fully. I am terrified, she admitted. Because I already care about you way more than I should after just a few weeks. And that could really hurt if this does not work out. Daniel took both her hands in his. What if it does work out, though? She smiled. And it was the most genuine smile he had ever seen from her. Then, I guess we will figure it out together. They said goodnight with another long hug, neither wanting to let go. Daniel walked home, feeling like his heart was too big for his chest. He had taken the risk. They both had. And whatever came next, at least they were being honest about it. Olivia's photography exhibition was 1 week away, and she was completely overwhelmed. Daniel could hear the stress in her voice during their phone calls. She had been working 16-hour days trying to get everything perfect, second-guessing every choice, barely sleeping or eating. On Wednesday afternoon, Daniel made a decision. He showed up at her studio unannounced with 2 large coffees and a bag of pastries. When Olivia opened the door, she looked exhausted. Her hair was messy, she had paint stains on her shirt, and there were dark circles under her eyes. You look like you need backup, Daniel said simply. The relief on her face was immediate. I really do, she admitted. They worked together for the next several hours. Daniel helped hang prints, organized her portfolio, made phone calls to confirm details with the gallery. He did not know much about professional photography, but he knew how to help someone who was drowning in tasks. Around dinner time, Daniel realized Olivia had not eaten all day. He ordered food from her favorite restaurant and refused to let her work until she had finished at least half her meal. She protested at first, but eventually gave in. While eating, Olivia opened up about her fears. What if no one comes? What if they come, but hate everything? What if I am not actually good enough, and everyone has just been too polite to tell me? Daniel listened carefully. Then he said, Some people might not connect with your work. That happens with all art. But I have seen your photographs, Olivia. They are honest, and beautiful, and real. The right people will see that. She looked at him with tired but grateful eyes. When did you become so wise? I am not wise, he laughed. I am just someone who believes in you. They kept working until late evening. The storm warning came through on both their phones at the same time. Severe thunderstorm, possible flash flooding. Residents advised to stay indoors. "You should not drive home in this," Daniel said, looking out the window at the darkening sky. "My apartment is closer. You can wait out the storm there." Olivia agreed without much argument. She was too tired to fight about it. By the time they reached Daniel's apartment, the storm had started in earnest. Rain hammered against the windows. Thunder rumbled constantly. Then the power went out, plunging everything into darkness. Daniel fumbled for candles and his emergency flashlight. Within a few minutes, he had created a warm glow throughout the living room. Olivia stood at the window, watching lightning fork across the sky. "I have always loved storms," she said quietly. "They feel honest. No pretending, no holding back. Just pure energy." Daniel brought her a blanket and draped it around her shoulders. She pulled it tight and smiled at him. "Thanks for taking care of me today. I would still be panicking at the studio if you had not shown up. That is what friends do," he said, then paused. Olivia turned from the window to face him. The candlelight made shadows dance across her face. "I do not know what we are," she admitted. "But I know I think about you constantly. I know I feel better when you are around. And I know that scares me because the last time I let myself feel this way, it ended badly." Daniel moved closer. "I am scared too," he said. "My ex destroyed my confidence in ways I am still recovering from. The idea of being vulnerable again feels impossible. But then I met you, and suddenly it does not feel impossible anymore." Thunder crashed overhead, making them both jump. Olivia laughed nervously and stepped closer to Daniel. He wrapped his arms around her instinctively. She fit against him perfectly, her head resting on his chest. "I can hear your heartbeat," she whispered. "Is it giving me away?" he asked. "Completely." They stayed like that for a long moment, just holding each other, while the storm raged outside. Then, Olivia lifted her head to look at him. The question in her eyes was clear. Daniel cupped her face in his hands. "Is this okay?" he asked softly. She answered by standing on her toes and closing the distance between them. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, like they were both afraid of breaking something precious. Daniel felt her hands slide up to his shoulders. He felt her breath against his lips. He felt the exact moment they both stopped being afraid. When they pulled apart, both were breathing hard. Olivia laughed softly. "I have been wanting to do that for weeks." "Me too," Daniel admitted. "I almost kissed you at the waterfront." "I know," she said. "I was waiting for you too." They kissed again, and this time there was no hesitation. It felt like coming home after being lost for a long time. It felt right, in a way Daniel had not experienced before. They moved to the couch, sitting close together with his arm around her shoulders. The storm continued outside, but inside felt safe and warm. They talked for hours, sharing stories they had never told anyone, kissing between conversations, learning the feeling of each other. As dawn started to break and the storm finally cleared, they were tangled together on the couch. Olivia's head rested on Daniel's chest. His hand played with her hair. Neither had slept, but neither seemed to care. "I should probably go home and shower before work," Olivia said. But she made no move to leave. "Probably," Daniel agreed, tightening his arm around her. "Or you could stay a little longer." She tilted her head up to look at him. "What are we doing, Daniel?" He thought about it seriously. "I think we are taking a risk on something that could be really special. If you are willing to take that risk with me." Olivia smiled and kissed him softly. "I am terrified," she said. "But yes, I am willing." The morning light filtered through the windows, painting everything in soft gold. Outside, the world was washed clean from the storm. Inside, two people who had been afraid to feel anything real had finally let their walls come down. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. And that was enough. 3 months had passed since that stormy night, and Daniel still could not quite believe his luck. He and Olivia had become inseparable. She kept a toothbrush at his apartment. He had a drawer at her studio. They texted each other random thoughts throughout the day. They fell asleep on phone calls when they could not be together. They had become the kind of couple that made their friends roll their eyes, but neither of them cared. Tonight was the opening of Olivia's first major solo exhibition. Daniel arrived at the gallery 2 hours early to help with final preparations. He found her standing in front of the displays, chewing her bottom lip nervously. "It looks incredible," he said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. She leaned back against him. "What if people hate it? What if critics tear it apart? What if this whole thing is a huge mistake?" Daniel turned her around to face him. "These photographs are you. They are honest and vulnerable and beautiful. Some people might not get it, but the ones who matter will. Trust yourself, Olivia." She took a deep breath and nodded. Then Daniel noticed something. One photograph he had never seen before. It was a candid shot of him from that very first day in the coffee shop. He was looking out the window at the rain, completely unaware of being photographed. Something about the image captured a moment of quiet loneliness. "When did you take this?" he asked, surprised. Olivia looked a bit embarrassed. "That first day. You looked so lost and sincere. I could not help myself. I took one quick shot when you were not looking." The title card read simply, "The Beginning." Daniel felt something warm spread through his chest. "You knew even then?" "I knew something," she admitted. "I did not know what yet, but I felt it." He kissed her forehead. "Well, you were right to follow that feeling." The gallery started filling with people. Critics, collectors, art enthusiasts, friends, and family. Daniel stayed close to Olivia, offering quiet support when she needed it. He watched people interact with her work, saw the emotions on their faces as they studied each image. A well-known art critic spent 20 minutes in front of one particular photograph. When she finally moved on, she approached Olivia directly. "Your work captures something rare," she said. "Genuine human connection without sentimentality. That is incredibly difficult to achieve." Olivia glowed with pride and relief. "Thank you," she managed to say. "That means everything." Several collectors expressed interest in purchasing prints. A magazine wanted to feature her work. An established gallery owner asked about representation. Everything Olivia had worked toward was finally happening. During her speech to the gathered crowd, Olivia talked about vulnerability in art, about how the best photographs came from opening yourself up completely, even when it felt scary. Her eyes found Daniel in the crowd as she spoke, and he understood she was talking about more than just photography. She was talking about them, about taking risks, about choosing to trust again. After the formal event ended, a smaller group gathered at a rooftop bar nearby. Music played softly. City lights sparkled below them. Daniel and Olivia snuck away to a quiet corner, away from the celebration. "Thank you," Olivia said, taking his hands in hers. "For everything. For believing in me when I could not believe in myself. For showing up when I needed you. For being patient with my fears." Daniel smiled. "You saved me too. You know, I was just going through the motions before I met you. You reminded me what it feels like to actually be alive." They stood close together, looking out over the city. Olivia had something on her mind, though. He could tell by the way she was quiet, working up courage to say something. "There is an opportunity in Paris," she finally said. "A 2-month photography residency. It is a huge honor, but the timing is terrible. We just found our rhythm, and now I might have to leave." Daniel felt his stomach drop for just a moment. Then, he pushed past the initial fear. "You should go," he said firmly. "This is what you have been working toward." "But what about us?" she asked, worry clear in her voice. "I will visit whenever I can," he said. "We will video call every day. 2 months, is not that long in the big picture, and I would never want to be the reason you did not chase your dreams. Olivia looked at him with something like wonder. You really mean that? Of course I do. The words hung in the air between them. It was the first time either of them had said it out loud. Daniel held his breath, suddenly worried he had said it too soon. Then Olivia smiled, and it was like the sun coming out. I love you too, she said. I have been wanting to say it for weeks, but I was afraid. They kissed under the stars, surrounded by the hum of the city below. Everything felt right. Everything felt possible. A friend interrupted to tell Olivia that the gallery owner wanted to discuss representation and future shows. The excitement on her face made Daniel fall even deeper in love. He watched her walk back into the party, confident and glowing with success. Later, as the party wound down, they walked through the city streets hand in hand. They passed the coffee shop where they had first met. It was closed for the night, dark and quiet. Look, Olivia said, pointing at the window. They stood there for a moment, remembering that rainy afternoon. Two strangers, sharing space, not knowing they were about to become everything to each other. Daniel pulled her close. Their bodies had been speaking louder than words from the very beginning. Every accidental touch, every lingering glance, every moment of standing just a bit too close. They had been communicating what they felt long before they were brave enough to say it out loud. Now their hearts were saying everything that needed to be said. I love you. I choose you. I am willing to take this risk because you are worth it. The future was uncertain. Olivia would go to Paris. Daniel would visit. They would figure out the distance and the challenges that came with it. But they were in this together, now. Some people spend their whole lives looking for a connection that feels real. Daniel and Olivia had found it on a random rainy Thursday afternoon, when one person offered to share their table with a stranger. Everything that followed was just proof that sometimes the smallest gestures lead to the biggest changes. Sometimes a spilled cup of coffee starts a conversation that changes everything. Sometimes your body knows what your heart wants before your mind catches up. As they walked into the night, their story continued. Still being written. Still full of possibility. Some risks are worth taking. Some people are worth fighting for. And sometimes, if you are very lucky, you find someone who makes you believe in love again. That was their beginning. This was just the start of everything else.